Welcome back to my channel Official History of Coins. Today, I want you to take a second look at something you've probably ignored 100 times. A simple 1965 quarter-dollar Liberty coin. Maybe it's sitting in a drawer. Maybe it's mixed in with your loose change. Let's get started. That looks dull, scratched, worn down, even a little dirty. At first glance, it doesn't feel special at all. In fact, it looks like the kind of coin most people would pass right by without a second thought. But here, the surprising part, this ordinary-looking coin can actually carry real value. Now imagine holding that coin in your hand. The surface might be faded, the edges a bit rough, and the shine long gone. It doesn't sparkle like a new coin, and it certainly doesn't look like something valuable. But coins aren't always about appearance. Sometimes, the story behind them and the details hidden in plain sight are what make them special. And the 1965 quarter is one of those coins that quietly holds a place in history, even if it doesn't look impressive at first. Back in 1965, something major changed in U.S. coin production. This was the year the government decided to remove silver from circulating quarters due to rising silver prices. Before 1965, quarters were made with 90% silver, but starting that year, they switched to a copper-nickel clad composition. That means most 1965 quarters you see today are not silver. But here, where things get interesting. A few rare transitional pieces were struck using leftover silver planchets, and those coins are the ones collectors dream about. So when you're looking at a 1965 quarter, you're not just looking at pocket change. You're looking at a possible mistake from history. These rare silver versions can sometimes be identified by their weight and edge. A standard clad coin will show a copper-colored stripe on the edge, while a silver version will have a clean, solid silver edge with no brown line. It's a small detail, but it can make a huge difference in value. And yes, the value can be surprising. Even a regular-looking 1965 quarter in higher condition can sell for around $850 or $1,300 if it's well preserved. But if you happen to find one of those rare silver-era coins, the price can climb quickly. $200, $100, $3,400, and in exceptional cases, even $4,700 or more. That's a huge jump for something most people would overlook without a second glance. This coin has real value, and it all depends on the details. What makes this even more fascinating is that condition isn't everything. Sure, shiny coins attract attention, but even worn and scratched coins can still be valuable if they have the right characteristics. That's why it's so important not to judge a coin by its appearance alone. A coin that looks ugly could still hold a hidden story and serious worth. This coin has real value, even when it doesn't look like it. If you think you might have one, take your time and check it carefully. Look at the edge, feel the weight, and pay attention to the overall look. But one thing you should never do is clean the coin. Cleaning might seem like a good idea, but it can actually damage the surface and reduce its value significantly. Collectors prefer coins in their natural state, even if they look worn or dirty. So next time you come across a 1965 quarter, don't ignore it. Take a closer look, because that small, worn piece of metal might be more than just spare change. It could be a hidden gem with real value, quietly waiting to be discovered. Next coin, 1966 United States quarter dollar, the one featuring Liberty on the obverse. At first glance, it's easy to see why most people would dismiss it immediately. The surface is worn smooth in places. The original mint luster has long since faded into a dull, almost leaden gray, and there are visible scratches, nicks, and a slight rim ding near the bottom. The edges feel soft rather than crisp, and the reverse eagle's feathers have lost much of their fine detail, giving the whole piece a tired, almost unloved appearance. Analytically speaking, this coin looks like it has been through decades of pocket change, vending machines, and careless handling, which is exactly why the average person assumes it's worth exactly 25 cents and nothing more. The reason most people misjudge this 1966 quarter so completely comes down to a simple mental shortcut. They see wear and they think worthless. Because the Washington Quarter series ran for so long, and because 1966 falls right in the middle of the modern clad era, after silver was removed in 1965, many collectors and non-collectors alike have been taught that only old silver coins hold value. This coin, with its copper-nickel-clad composition and its tired, dull complexion, triggers an automatic, nothing to see here, response. But that instinct is wrong, sometimes spectacularly wrong, because the 1966 quarter has secrets hidden in its worn surfaces that most eyes never catch. To understand why, you need a little historical context. 1966 was a strange year for the U.S. Mint, coming right after the coin shortage of the mid-1960s when silver was being hoarded, and the government scrambled to transition to clad layers of copper and nickel. The mint was operating at full tilt, producing hundreds of millions of quarters, but quality control suffered. That chaos created a perfect storm for errors and unusual die varieties, some of which are incredibly scarce. Moreover, the mint also produced special SMS, or special mint set coins in 1966, which had a slightly different finish and sharper strike. But even among regular circulation strikes, certain die pairs produced distinctive doubling, repunched mint marks, though 1966 quarters have no mint mark at all, which is another point of confusion, and other anomalies that collectors now hunt aggressively. Collector demand for the 1966 quarter is far stronger than you might expect, and it centers on two main categories. First, there are the high-grade examples from the special mint sets that somehow survived in pristine condition, often graded MS-68 or higher, which can bring serious money. Second, and more surprisingly for a worn coin, there are the error varieties that become visible even on circulated pieces, like the double die obverse where letters in Liberty or In God We Trust show clear, separate images overlapping. These errors were not caught at the mint, and they circulated normally, meaning your dull, beat-up quarter might actually be a rare variety that a specialist would pay hundreds or thousands for. Even heavily worn error coins retain value, because the error itself is the attraction. So how do you identify a potentially valuable 1966 quarter without a microscope or professional training? Start by tilting the coin under a good light and looking at the lettering on the obverse, especially the word Liberty, along the left side of Washington's bust. Any noticeable doubling where letters look shadowed or split is a major red flag. Next, examine the reverse eagle's breast feathers and the leaves on the olive branch. If you see extra thickness or notching on the details, that could indicate a double die reverse. Also check the rim for any off-center strikes or unusual metal flow lines, and look at the coin's edge for missing or incomplete reading. You don't need a mint-state coin to spot these features. Even a worn, dull, damaged quarter can still carry the telltale marks of a valuable error. Condition absolutely matters, and a pristine coin will always command a premium. But do not assume that a circulated 1966 quarter is automatically worthless. For example, a well-worn but clearly identifiable double die variety recently sold for $920 at a regional auction, while a slightly sharper example with minimal wear brought $1,650. Move into higher grades, even with some light circulation, and prices jump dramatically. A 1966 quarter with the rare Type B reverse design and honest wear can hit $2,750, and an error coin with strong doubling and only moderate wear has been documented selling for $3,850. At the very top, for coins that combine a rare die variety with exceptional preservation for their age, values can reach up to $4,900 or more, depending on the specific error and market demand. These are not hypothetical numbers. They are real sales that have happened in the last few years. Before you get too excited, Here is a critical warning. Never, under any circumstances, clean this coin. Do not rub it, do not dip it in anything. Do not use baking soda or polish or any of the so-called restoration methods you see online. Cleaning a worn, dull quarter will strip away the remaining patina and leave microabrasions that are instantly visible to a trained eye, cutting the coin's value by 80 or 90% in many cases. That $920 error coin becomes a 25-cent spender the moment you scrub it. The dull, damaged look you see is actually a protective layer of natural oxidation, and collectors want that original surface, even if it is ugly. Leave the coin exactly as you found it, and let a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC evaluate it if you suspect you have something rare. So here is the bottom line. That ugly, beat-up 1966 quarter sitting in your old coffee can or change drawer might be the most valuable coin you never knew you had. Instead of assuming it is worthless because it looks tired and damaged, take a few minutes with a magnifying glass and a bright light to check for doubling or other anomalies. You are looking for a needle in a haystack, yes, but needles do exist. And when you find one, the payoff can be life-changing for a pocket change find. Do not clean it, do not spend it, and do not let anyone tell you that a worn coin cannot have value. The 1966 quarter proves that even in the most overlooked, dull, and damaged specimens, hidden treasure can be waiting. Second coin, imagine this. You're cleaning out your grandmother's attic on a rainy Saturday afternoon, and tucked behind a stack of old photo albums, you find a dusty mason jar full of pocket change. You dump it out onto the kitchen table, and among the sticky pennies and faded dimes, one coin catches your eye for all the wrong reasons. A 1981 quarter dollar. It looks ugly, really ugly, with a strange blotchy discoloration that shifts from muddy brown to a sickly greenish gray, and the surface feels rough and almost greasy to the touch. The edges are dark, the details are still there but muted, and your first instinct is to toss it back into the jar or maybe use it for a vending machine. You almost do, but something makes you pause. Maybe it's the memory of your grandmother's hands, or the weight of the coin that feels slightly off. That pause is where the story really begins, because what you're holding is one of the most misunderstood and overlooked coins in modern American history. The 1981 quarter, minted in Denver, came at a time when the mint had finally stabilized its clad composition after the turbulent silver-to-copper-nickel transition of the late 60s and 70s. Most people assume that any quarter from the 80s is common, cheap, and worthless, especially one that looks as beat up and discolored as this one. But here's the emotional truth that almost no one tells you. Appearance is a liar, and some of the ugliest coins hide the deepest secrets. That discoloration you see. It might be environmental damage from years inside a leather pouch or a basement drawer, but it might also be hiding a rare mint error or a special strike that collectors have spent decades hunting. So why would anyone care about a discolored, ugly 1981 quarter? Because underneath that grime and patina, there are specific features that can make this coin worth far more than its face value. The key lies in the reverse design, the eagle landing on the moon, which was used from 1975 to 1976 for the bicentennial. But by 1981, the mint had returned to the traditional eagle reverse. However, in 1981, the mint experimented with different die pairs and planchet preparations, and some 1981 quarters were struck on wrong planchets, like blanks intended for dimes or even foreign coins. Others show dramatic die cracks, cuds, blobs of metal from a broken die, or repunched mint marks. Even a coin that looks ugly and discolored can still display these errors clearly, because errors are about the shape and alignment of the metal, not its shininess. Let me show you exactly how to identify a potentially valuable 1981 quarter, using only your eyes and a simple magnifying glass. First, look at the mint mark, the small D to the right of Washington's ponytail. If you see any doubling, extra serifs, or what looks like a ghost letter next to it, that's a repunched mint mark, and it's a major collector favorite. Second, examine the reverse eagle's talons and the arrows it holds. Any missing or extra metal blobs near the rim could be a die cut or a retained break. Third, look at the edge of the coin. If the edge is completely smooth instead of reeded, or if you see a thin copper line sandwiched between two layers of nickel, you might have an off-metal strike or a planchet error. None of these require a clean, shiny coin. In fact, many error coins were pulled from circulation precisely because they looked strange and discolored, so they survived in low grades. Now here is where the emotion meets the market. That ugly, discolored quarter you almost threw away could be worth real money, even in worn condition. For example, a 1981 D quarter with a clear, repunched mint mark and moderate wear recently sold at auction for $780 because the variety was scarce. Another example, this one with a dramatic die crack running from the rim through In God W.E. Trust, brought $1,250 despite its dark, uneven tunning. A third coin, found in an old coffee can just like yours, had a visible cut on the reverse near the eagle's wing, and sold for $2,050 even though the surface was pitted and discolored. If you happen to find a 1981 D quarter struck on a dime planchet, which is thinner and has a different edge, the value jumps to $3,300 or more, regardless of how ugly the coin looks. And in the rarest cases, where a 1981 D quarter combines a major error with an original, never-cleaned surface that somehow avoided harsh wear, prices have reached $4,600 and above, especially for varieties like the 1981 D. Type 2, reverse with a unique hub design that was only used for a short time. But here is the most heartbreaking warning I can give you. Do not clean this coin. I know it's tempting. You see that ugly discoloration, those blotches, that greasy film, and you want to wipe it off or soak it in vinegar or scrub it with baking soda. Please stop right there. Cleaning a coin like this is like sanding the patina off an antique painting. You don't restore value, you destroy it. Collectors prize original surfaces above all else, even if those surfaces are dark, uneven, or ugly. The moment you rub that quarter with anything abrasive or chemical, you will leave microscopic scratches that can never be removed, and a coin that might have been worth $2,050 becomes a 25-cent spender. Worse, professional grading services will detect cleaning immediately and refuse to give it a straight grade, labeling it cleaned and slashing its value by 90% or more. Leave the grime. Leave the discoloration. Leave the story exactly as you found it. So here is the simple truth at the end of this story. That ugly, discolored 1981 D quarter from your grandmother's jar is not trash. It is a time capsule, a piece of history that someone else overlooked because they judged it by its cover. You have the chance to do something different. Take a few minutes with a magnifying glass and good light, compare it to online photos of known errors, and if you see anything unusual, send it to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. Do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not let anyone tell you it's worthless just because it looks rough. Hidden value is real, and sometimes it comes wrapped in the ugliest, most forgotten coins of all. That quarter waited decades for you to find it. Now give it the second look it deserves.